welcome to a new year of Motormouth. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
And we're here at the Boyertown Museum, located at 85 South Walnut Street in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. And another new feature this 2016 is the museum is now open 7 days a week.
Right.
It used to be closed on Mondays, and we've now changed that. We're open all 7 days, 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're still closed major holidays, but we look forward to seeing everybody not have an excuse to not come, right?
Now, were you open today?
We were. It's
Okay.
Monday.
When we're
filming.
taping this, though, it's Carol Shelby's birthday. So, I don't know.
That's true.
Should have been closed. It's a major holiday.
In honor.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for interrupting.
But we were open, yes. Not very honorable here. Again, if you would like to contact us here at the museum, you can do that by giving us a call, 610-367-2090, or visit our website, boyertownmuseum.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Especially love to hear from you. If you have any feedback about the show or show ideas or anything, we'd love to hear all that stuff. So. I'd like to think that, winter it's a little quieter, but it never quiets down around here. But the one event we have coming up that I want to let you all know about is Fastnacht Day on Tuesday, February 9th. And we're going to have that right here in the diner. We did that last year. It worked out pretty well, so we're going to do it again. So come in, pay your regular museum admission. You can come in the diner, have coffee and a Fastnacht for 50 cents. Works a lot like Diner Day. Not as busy, though.
No.
So 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Tuesday, February 9th. So with that, we're going to move on to our show. We got a lot of stuff here tonight, and there's going to be a photo coming up there on screen, and that is, I'm not sure of the date exactly, but that is JFK driving a golf cart. Dan, you have a word that would describe that golf cart?
Is this the part you were going to spring on me?
Yeah, no.
It's interesting.
He's nicer than me. I said it was dopey.
Yeah.
But I know it's really hard to read, but there's a little logo on the front of that golf cart that says Chadwick. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But this golf cart, fiberglass body, I think they used BMW engines, and it was supposedly built by the Chadwick Engineering Works of Pottstown, Pennsylvania. I don't know where that was, and we'll get to why we don't know exactly where that was. The Chadwick that's named after is Lee Chadwick, and he died in 1958 at the age of 83, so he very likely was not even alive anymore when this golf cart was built. And he spent actually most of his career, almost 30 years, with the Perfection Stove Company.
Cleveland.
Could have been.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I know this stuff.
Thanks for filling me in.
Yeah.
That was not the part I was going to spring on you.
Well, I sprung it on you.
Thank you. So why would we talk about this guy? Well, if you go back a lot further than that, Chadwick was involved in cars in the early days. And here's an ad here for the Great Chadwick 6. Now, this is kind of early in his career. Before this, he built cars supposedly for the Boston Ball Bearing Company. It was kind of a stunt, kind of demonstrate all the uses of ball and roller bearings.
Right.
He moved on to the Searchmont Company in Philadelphia, and they were building auto buggies, so kind of like the cycle car type things that we were looking at, lightweight, not very powerful cars. Right. And he wanted to build 4-cylinder cars there, but the company went bankrupt. So he bought a whole bunch of the Searchmont parts, and he built what they consider the first Chadwick in Chester, Pennsylvania, close by. And he founded Fairmount Engineering in Philadelphia. I assume Fairmount Park would be the thing. And he built Chadwicks, he wasn't calling them really Chadwicks yet, and repaired foreign cars. So that ad that's there on the screen, you can see at the bottom, maybe, I know it's small print, it says Chadwick Engineering Works, Spring Garden and 32nd Streets, Philadelphia. So he started in Philly, and he eventually outgrew that shop, and he moved to
Pottstown?
Pottstown.
You thought I was going to say Cleveland.
I was a little worried, but
No.
I knew
Yeah.
you knew the story. And he moved to Pottstown, and the Chadwick Engineering Works was incorporated in Pottstown in March of 1907. And it was on South Kime Street, 150 South Kime Street, I believe is the exact address. So that is later going to become Spicer Manufacturing, and then which was a division of Dana.
And I'm thinking South Kime Street is probably between High Street and the river.
Yes.
I think that's the south
Yes.
side there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
okay.
And you can see there's one shot of the factory, but then there's the bird's eye view, which is still there to my understanding. All of it's still
okay.
there. So a huge, now I don't think it was that huge when Chadwick was there, but the Dana Corporation was a huge corporation.
Right.
Took up a lot of real estate down there. But he built there in Pottstown what he called the Great Chadwick 6. And it came out in '06, but the first road test of the first Chadwick production car was not until April of '07. And, you know, these are really very expensive cars that he's building. He's kind of funny. If you read some of his, like the manuals and stuff, he's almost kind of scolding to people who are, not scolding, to buying his cars, but it's kind of, you must take care of this car, and after a long road trip, you should know enough to bring it in to have it inspected, and if something falls apart after that because you didn't get it inspected, well, that's your fault, and they're not going to take blame for it. So here's a photo. We only know of 2 Chadwicks, I guess, that are left, and they're both, we'll show them both on the screen here, and these used to be in Bill Pollock's auto showcase.
Bill Pollock is who?
Well, now it's Pollock Auto Restoration.
Right.
He had a museum.
Right. He had a
I guess.
museum in Pottstown.
Were you? I don't even know when he closed.
No,
when did he close?
it was before my time. I'm thinking in the maybe in the 80s.
He closed.
That's when he closed.
Okay.
And but Pollock Restoration in Pottstown on South Franklin Street is still there, and it's the same building, but it's on the second floor. I understand is where he had his collection.
100. I'm thinking, how many cars did he have? Do you know?
I don't know,
was
but
a lot.
that's where the Chadwicks were housed at that time.
And they're not there anymore. So
No.
yeah. I don't know where these cars are out on the West Coast now.
Yeah,
I
they're in
believe.
California now, both of them. I understand that they went to the Owl's Head Museum, I believe it's Owl's Head, up in Maine, together, and then they sold them both together, and now they're out in California.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I said that right. There might be another owner in there somewhere, so they're real far away.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to get them back.
Unfortunately, they're far away.
I think we would find space in here.
We would make the room.
We would.
We definitely would. His cars were, like I said, really high end. They were supposed to go very fast. He was into kind of high performance, really. He had, and you'll see a close up of the engine here, cylindrical copper water jackets. And I guess this was really like maybe the most prominent feature on his cars, do you think?
No,
No?
no,
Really?
no.
To me, they're eye-catching when you
They're
see.
eye-catching.
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about, eye-catching.
Well, yeah, they're eye-catching.
And we're talking about supercharged. Are you
Oh
going to
yeah,
get to that?
I
To
will a
me,
little
that's
bit, but you'll
the
need to
big
talk
one.
more about that.
That's
but,
the biggie.
He had a lot of patents actually on this car. The water jacketing, the carburetor, direct drive double bevel gear transmission.
Okay.
It's all Greek to me.
And well, you know, real quick here, you think he has all these patents, so he's always
Yeah.
tinkering with the cars, so he knew
Yes.
his cars inside and outside, and they weren't just buying from other manufacturers.
No,
That
no.
that is why in the manuals he is telling these people, make sure you get inspected and maintenance and on and on and on. And so he had the heart into what he was building, which is kind of interesting.
Well, that, like you're saying, that was pretty common, this kind of like outsourcing of
Correct.
parts, and he really wasn't too into that. Now, the Light Foundry in Pottstown did a lot of, I think pretty much all the aluminum and bronze castings for him, but local, they're right there. You know,
Yep.
he really had a hand in it and what they were doing. He used to have a lot of work done at Redding Body Company. They were aluminum bodies fitted onto steel frames, which were reinforced to a wood frame. He had Redding Body Company do a lot of that work, but he kind of got annoyed with them, and he convinced the one guy to sort of leave, supposedly, and start Fleetwood.
Okay,
Metal
that's how
body.
that worked. I knew there was a connection with him and Fleetwood.
And at first, he was only supplying Chadwick, but he moved into other car bodies, obviously. Then Fleetwood did bodies for a lot of people. He had a slogan that I really liked: "Built up to a standard, not down to a price."
Right.
I like that.
Yes.
It's $5,500 selling price for a car, which in 1906, 1907 it's not chump change right there.
Chump change.
No, it's not. They really got into racing a lot. In 1908, they were in the Vanderbilt
Okay.
Cup, but they gave out on lap 9. They didn't finish. There was also an Acme in that race.
Yes.
It didn't fare as well as the
I think I
Chadwick.
remember reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Acme from Reading.
Acme from Reading, I should note, yes. 1908, they did the Giant's Despair hill climb in Wilkes-Barre. 6,000-foot ascent in 1 minute 38 seconds.
Wow.
So they were high performance. 2 weeks later, they did Skipback Hill in Norristown, 74.2 miles per hour. So really, for this time period, that's good. That's really good. There's a picture of the Vanderbilt race there. Magneto problems are what took them out.
Okay.
The Acme had a broken camshaft.
Okay.
So there, that's trivia for you.
All right. Shall I write that down?
In October of 1910, they did the Fairmount Park race. There's a photo there. That's Chadwick, the man with the mustache there, and the driver, Len Zengel. I assume that's how you say his name. He was the driver. Apparently, Chadwick liked him a lot better than his previous driver, who I think you mentioned to me earlier, that Willie Haupt.
Haupt. Yeah.
I don't think Chadwick was a huge fan of him, so he liked
Yes.
Zengel much more. This photo is the supercharger
Yes,
that you're talking
I see
about. The supercharger, 1909 or 1910 or 1910 maybe.
Sounds right.
It had to be fitted at the factory. So you had to get the factory to do it. And if you can see on this photo, there's like a bulge going on the side of the hood.
It's like right above the wheel.
That's
tire.
it. Yeah. And I guess it wasn't terribly popular because it wasn't terribly attractive, but then who really wanted a supercharger back then? What do you know more about it? Because this is...
Well, about the supercharger in their car, I don't know much about.
Yeah,
but you know, it was. I mean, superchargers give a lot more horsepower to an engine, and you know, for a racing vehicle.
Already.
For a racing vehicle, you know, more power, more speed,
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
At any cost.
Hey.
So, and again, he's an engineer, and you know, they're trying to get the best car available with what he had back then.
He's always an engineer because he called this the Great Chadwick 6.
Right.
But then he'll go later on. It will be called the Perfected Chadwick 6, and he was still trying to perfect it. Actually, he was still. It wasn't really perfect in his mind. He always could see room for improvement. But 1910 is when things start to kind of go a little haywire there. Light Foundry stops making the castings. They basically say they're not going to do it anymore. So now he has to do it at the Chadwick factory, which is extremely expensive. Now he has to get all the equipment to do castings, which he was paying Light to do. And then Lee Chadwick himself left in 1911. They were still building cars there, maybe until 1914. But in all, only less than 300 were built, it seems, and we're down to 2 surviving that we know of.
Well, there was another one. It's kind of put together by parts.
Yes, I'm not sure the whole story on that. I mean,
Well,
I guess there were parts.
Yeah.
Did Bill Pollock put it together, or we're not sure?
I have an idea who.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
We're-
just
yeah,
leave it at that.
we'll leave it at
But
that.
that was on display here a few
Yeah.
years ago, and that had some original parts, but fabricated parts
Right.
also, and so it was a mishmash. But it's not a real production Chadwick, and
Right.
but you
It
know,
did-
there's a lot
what
of
do you
stuff
do?
in it.
There's
It
none
was,
left,
and it
so-
was a pretty neat car. So.
Yeah. As for that golf cart, I don't know what the story is on
I
that.
don't know.
Um,
We have one of them, don't we?
we do.
Still? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not on display. So if you're
Display.
going to come here,
It's
no.
Scottish Heather Red, though, I think, according
Is
to
that what
the
it was?
brochure.
Okay. I
The
remember it's
brochure, the only brochure I saw for the golf cart, just says Chadwick Engineering Works, Pottstown, PA. I don't know where they were built because, I mean, we have an idea, but
Mm-hmm.
they weren't built in the Chadwick building that was being used by Dana.
Mhm.
So, no clue. And
I don't know.
where the whole thought process behind that was. I don't know why they put the Chadwick name, even the same script on the golf
Mm-hmm.
carts. To my understanding, I don't think Lee Chadwick really had anything to do with it.
I don't
He
think
could
so
have.
either.
He was probably, if not already passed away, very old. Probably just didn't want to deal with it. And in 1911, he moved on because he wanted to manufacture something else that is road related, but not a car. And that's where
I come in.
you're going to come in now.
Okay. Is that where you're springing this on me?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
Oh man, you're not going to know
Oh,
what's
wow.
next.
Okay. This is like an early GPS, I guess you could say.
That's kind of what we call it around here.
But we're going to be talking about some other things. Think about 100 years ago, some of this stuff here. And the first thing I'm going to have for you to look at is a Viadex route indicator. And you're looking at a picture, advertisement of it.
You took away my springing on you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm
We're looking
sorry.
at- That's good. That's good.
And it was kind of a road chart that kind of rotated inside this box, and it would give instructions. It rolled on a spool, operated electrical contact with the front wheels. As the car moved, the indicator had printed instructions to tell the driver what to expect along the road ahead. And the thing is, and we have these is it blue books that give you
Yes.
instructions? You look them up, and it tells you, you go, 0.4 miles to come to a fork in the road, and you take it. Yogi Berra. No, it'll tell you to, left or right, or there's railroad tracks coming, and that's kind of the indication is gave. So that's the Viadex route indicator, and the one you're looking at is from 1914, made by a company in Canal Dover, Ohio. What a great name for a town.
It is, isn't it?
And then you're looking at the Jones Live Map, which we're going to go back a little further. That's 1909. It was considered the first mechanical navigation guide for automobiles. And there was a rotating disc in it, and disc represented 100 miles. It was divided and marked and so on and so forth, and it told you where to go, and that sort of thing. And everything was like written instructions. But, we talk about the Viadex, which is rolled like a flat piece just rolling across in front of you. This was a disc, and, I guess there's a pointer, and you look at the pointer wherever it's pointing. Hopefully you're there.
And the Viadex looks like you actually have to do a good bit of reading.
Yeah, too. So
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, like the other one seems to have the arrow or something, and this is kind of reading a book almost
Yeah.
as you're going along. But
And the one you're looking at for the Jones, that goes from New York to, I think it's Waterbury. And I don't know how well you can read that on your screen. It says macadam and good gravel roads. So that was a
Ooh.
positive, is good gravel
yes.
roads. So anyway, that was the Jones Live Map. It says, You are always sure of your road. You fly past signboards at speed without a thought. You never stop to inquire your way. Right or wrong, all chance information is useless to you. You are as easy about your road as though you were running on rails. So it's, you know, you follow the directions that made it easy driving.
Fly.
Okay, those two. The third thing is the Chadwick Automatic Road Guide. And we're talking about Lee Chadwick again. As Kendra said, he left Chadwick Engineering Works in 1911. The company went bankrupt, so on and so forth. He made these road guides. So here's one. The museum, I'm going to let you hold this. The museum just received this just a few months ago. And this is one, and a very interesting thing. Now, coming out of the bottom, would it be a shaft that's going to a sprocket on one of your wheels? And as that turns, this shaft or cable turns, and it would make this go around. And I believe this is good for 100 miles also. And this disc here, which you really can't see too well, has a bunch of things written on with miles. So, and we got other disc for another machine, not this one, because these are smaller. But if you look on this, it shows it goes from 0 all the way around to 100 miles. And this will rotate very slowly as you're driving down the road. And it also talks, this is from Pottstown to Easton, Pennsylvania, and return both ways. And so you start out at Pottstown here at 0, and here at like 6.5 miles is Boyertown. And then there's New Berlinville, which is just up the road, Bally, and so on and so forth, and you just follow it. But this doesn't have any instructions on turning left or right or stopping. That's where this deal comes in, and you can't really see it, but there's little bitty holes in this thing. And when those holes rotate to a certain spot, there's a pin in the back, spring-loaded pin, it'll come out through the hole, and when that pin is actuated that way, there's a little sign thing that sticks up here and tells you, okay, left turn, right turn, and you can't see them in there. They're kind of down inside. I'm sorry for that. But like there'd be a right-hand turn sign, and it'd be a 90-degree arrow to the right. And you could also make your own disc. Also, you could buy these discs pre-made, but you could also make your own, and you push these keys as you're going along different distances. You push it and put a hole in the disc. And these keys were sort of the same thing. Here's a 3-way intersection, which tells you to go straight. Here's a left turn, a right turn. Here's a fork in the road. You turn you take it. This is a railroad here, and give me a moment. I'll tell you some more here. This is one with the D, danger.
Danger.
Dial D for danger.
Will Robinson.
Now this is interesting. This one here is Speed Trap. So you know, just like today, you know, say, oh, watch out down here, the guy's hiding. So Speed Trap, railroad crossing. This one here, it kind of looks like a snowman, but it means rough road. And this one's repeat signal, and then straight ahead here. And so that's them. And it's kind of interesting. This is a Model A here that we have. I thought I had a price for this, but I don't. But anyway, a Model B, which is kind of the same thing without this record attachment, the record making attachment, $75. Pre-made disc, indestructible aluminum, not just regular, it's indestructible, 40 cents. A blank one would be 15 cents. So you get extra cost items with it. You could get a clock or a speedometer, which would mount on the top, and an odometer. I've seen them on the top and on the bottom, actually. So that's it. So that's kind of the Chadwick Road Guide. And you'll also see another picture there, and it has two people, a black and white picture, two people standing there next to an old car. And the person on the right is Lee Chadwick, and we figure this is in the early 50s, okay? And the gentleman on the left is William Pollock, okay, who's very connected. We were talking about that. He restored the cars and so forth. I'm thinking, I'm not sure, I was going to say this earlier, but I'm thinking he is the one behind the Chadwick golf cart.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, where
Yeah.
they actually manufacture, I'm not sure, but William Pollock was a businessman in Pottstown, and so he had the financial wherewithal to start up a small golf cart company.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it with the road guides, and it's kind of interesting. And there was we did on our Reading show, it was about 3 years ago, we talked about this, and all it was paper because we didn't have the real deal. And somebody contacted us a few months ago, and her and her husband bought one, and mentioned one of these as an auction and stuff. And
Yeah.
so she should be watching this show, so hi, Sonia.
Thank you.
And so that's where this came from, and it was at Lee Chadwick's home in Vermont, I believe it was. So
Yeah, he, I guess he moved back up to the New England area after leaving here. And even if you look on the, I know you're not going to see this on camera because it's really faded and rubbed away a little bit, but this unit, these units weren't built in Pottstown.
right,
This he
is-
built
Connecticut.
Bantam, Connecticut. The patents have Pottstown on them
Right.
because he had patented it while he was living in Pottstown. And one of the reasons he left, to my understanding, one of the reasons he left the car company in Pottstown was because he wanted to find someone to manufacture these. I guess looking for some financial and assistance with that.
And he moved from here after Connecticut. They were also made in Cleveland, Indiana, or Cleveland, Ohio. So that's how come I knew he was
Okay.
involved with Cleveland. So
Well,
so
I
some of
guess
them-
this stove company that he was
Correct.
with for 30 years,
Perfection.
it sounded like he found them because of this. Like,
Okay.
maybe they were a potential backer or something, or a manufacturing facility for him. And
So.
that's how we found out about them.
So anyway, to wrap this all up, as Henry J. Tillman said, you know who Henry J. Tillman is? I don't either. But he's the one who coined the phrase, getting there is half the fun.
Oh, so it was good old
Kinda
Henry that said it.
Yeah.
Good old Hank.
He also said oregano is the spice of life. So that's okay.
He's full of little gems like
Oh
that.
yeah. Well, I think there are only two. So
We should have a Henry Tillman quote per
yeah,
episode. You
I think we used them
We're
all
already
up
maxed out.
Yeah. So okay. So that's it.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of Pottstown history there
Yes.
and beyond, which is
Very interesting
it's pretty
thing. And
cool.
so we're going to get this on display soon, I hope.
Yes, and we're gonna include some of this other stuff too that you mentioned, the Jones, the Viadex, the Blue Books, which are really neat in themselves because you've got this whole book of routes kind of
Correct.
spelled out for you, but they also have ads for things that you might need as a traveler
Right.
along those routes, like hotels or garages.
Correct. Yes.
And even we had a volunteer find one the other day. It advertised if the garage could charge electric cars too,
How about that?
which was pretty neat.
Neat. Yes.
So all those different things, and to me, it's amazing that someone went to all. This was a lot of work back in
Yeah.
1911 or earlier. So
Right.
that it got all done and compiled is pretty amazing to me.
Right.
I think. So that's our Chadwick, and I think we're really gonna do something different now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna move outside the diner for a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
And we'll see you in a bit.
Okay. Okay, we are outside the diner now. We're in front of the gas station, actually.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to be talking about one of the cars that we have on display. It says here in a sign, 1915 Ford Model T Touring. Okay, I understand that a lot of changing went on with the Model Ts. You know, you look at them and the years, or the style with the years seemed to never change. But there was a lot of changes. So tonight we're going to kind of critique our 1915 Model T, which is over here to our right. And we have Ron Smith, who is quite knowledgeable in Model Ts. You have a couple of them, I believe. He's going to kind of critique our car, thank you, and tell us some of the things. And we kind of know that we do not have a perfect car here, but we're going to also touch on why things got changed over the years and so on and so forth. So Ron, I'm going to ask you, point out some obvious thing that is not correct in our car. I hate to use that word because we're a museum where we're supposed to be correct, but some of this stuff's interesting.
Okay, well, one item would be for a 1915, the rim on the headlight should be made out of brass instead of painted black. And the lens should be clear instead of having a regular commercial type lens.
Let me ask you about the rim. Now, could that rim be brass but just painted over?
It could very easily be.
And why would they have done that, do you think? Just because they got tired of polishing it?
It could be because of that. It could be because maybe the brass had some pits in it, and they you know, put filler over top of them and smoothed them out. But most likely it's because it's the wrong lens, or the wrong rim, I mean.
And you said something also about the lens itself is wrong. Now,
yes.
What's wrong? I mean, a lens is a lens.
Well,
right? Wouldn't you say that, Kendra?
I thought so.
Yeah.
The lens that should be on a 1915 should be clear. It should be just like a piece of window glass.
Okay.
And Ford did not use a lens until 1921. 1921 was the first lens, and then it was kind of goofy looking because it had like a little bit of a lens to the bottom of it, but it had this at the top, like the top, almost a quarter of it is a green, like a brow that sticks out.
A visor.
Yeah, like a little visor, and it really looked awful. But the 21 had that, and then in 22 it used this, which they called the Ford H lens.
Okay.
I have no idea why they called it H, but that was the Ford H lens, and that went from 1922 till the end of Model T production in 1927.
Okay. And I'm thinking the lenses, they were probably replaced quite often because they would break, just like any other glass would. And you'd go to a store, right? You would go to you had a Pep Boys
Get something that fits.
1917 or whatever year it was, and get something that fits.
Probably one reason this could have the wrong lenses is just a piece of glass. It protected the bulb, but it really didn't focus the light.
Right.
And a purpose of a lens as we use today is to focus the light.
Right.
So when this lens came out in 1921, or in 1922, I mean, people bought them and put them in their older cars because they would fit.
It's an improvement.
And it gave them better lighting. So that could be one reason why they were changed.
It's interesting, I've read in older magazines, not older, old magazines, like 1916, and they started getting regulations on the amount of light, you know, it's like at 100 yards, you know, light had, the center of the light beam had to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And you kind of aim it with these, you know, with the lens, that would help aim the thing.
Yeah, and it also focuses the light instead of it without a lens, it'll be like kind of all over the place, and then when a lens, it directs it so that you'll get a clearer and a brighter light in that area that it's focused in.
Okay. And now you were saying also that these cars were very similar between which years again?
Between 1915 and 1922.
Okay.
There were a lot of differences, but they were subtle. And it's not that hard to take a 1922 and make it into a 1915. The biggest change was in 1917 when they eliminated the brass radiator and went to the black. But if you get if you have an older or a newer car and you get a brass radiator, and you'd have to change the hood and the hood former, but you could convert it into a 1915 car. And they often joked about there are more 1915s around now than what Henry Ford actually built, which isn't the case. But if you go to car shows where there are a lot of Model T Fords, you'll notice there's an awful lot of them that are supposedly 1915. But when you start looking at them close, you'll see that, well, this one's not quite a 1915 and it was converted.
Okay. Now, you were telling me this is a 1915.
This has some strong characteristics of a 1915. That,
So things are all right on it.
There are
You know,
things
we
on
get
this
the
that
sign's
are that actually indicate it as being a early 1915. It's also got some things that have been changed and are not 1915.
Right.
Okay, the engine being one of them, because when we had checked the date on the engine, it's 1916. Okay, so that in fact it's late 16, so it probably was actually in 1917. But the idea that Ford had too was, as he made changes, he wanted them to fit. He was always interested in servicing the older cars. So you can flip a Model T engine in any year. And so when he made changes, it was made so it would fit. And this engine fit in. So possibly this engine went bad in this at some point in time, and it got a later, engine. The body, though, there's a distinguishing feature on the body, which is right here. There is no bolt head coming out through the body.
Oh, okay.
And that means that the frame of the front seat is made out of wood. And when we had the seat out, it is made out of wood. And that makes it as definitely a early 15. Okay, so the body part, it is definitely early 15.
Okay.
So, like we said, there are some issues with other things, but the body is definitely an early 15.
And you said the engine too, just going back, you know, we opened that before the show and looked at the date, but you said they stopped putting the date
In
on
1917.
at some point. So,
Yeah, and they still had the engine number, which Ford always used the engine number as the serial number for the vehicle. The engine number, which I didn't even look at, because what Ford wanted you to do, because your title work and all your legal stuff is based on the engine number. So that number was not raised letters like, or raised numbers like we showed you for the date. They were stamped in to the block. So Ford wanted you to, if you change the engine, he wanted you to file that number off and restamp the block with the number that was originally on your engine. Now, if you did that and you start looking through the books, you'll see that, okay, the date and the engine number doesn't hold out at all.
Right.
But changing the engine number was very easy to do, and it was supposed to be done to keep the
So you could have a date that's cast in the block of, we'll say 1917. It was a replacement engine for this car, but the stamp number matches with the production number of the car.
Right,
I'll say.
right. Yes, yes.
Which is confusing.
Very
but,
confusing.
But if you kind of know why they're doing it, it's
Yes.
like, oh, okay.
And you would have to do, you would have to do it, because if you would ever sell the vehicle, the number on your title is actually your engine number. So if you change the number, you got to change the number on the engine, because it'll
Then
be a
you're
different
not-
number than on your title then.
Right. Then you're not selling your car,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, the practice was to file that number off, restamp it with your number, and they were kind of trusting that you would always stamp it with the right number
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
had, but that was acceptable back then.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so your engine's a little bit off, but and there's some other features that aren't exactly what they should be.
Yeah, you mentioned the windshield.
Yeah, the
Tell us about the windshield.
The windshield has some neat problems. The first,
I like that.
Neat problem.
How can you use that?
the first is, if you look down here, you see there's bolts here, 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 and here, and these bolts on a 1915, it should be riveted here and here. This is a later windshield.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other characteristic was the placement of the hinge. The hinge, if it is centered in the glass, like this is to be 15 and 16. But what happened here was someone knew they had the wrong windshield, and they wanted to make it look as close as they could. So what they did, and these windshields are next to impossible to find, the 15 and 16 with the rivets.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, and it's hard to cover this up. So they kept this part because it was hard to change.
Yeah.
Okay. But they found the right hinge. And what they did was they put the 15-16 hinge on. But when they put them on, they got them mixed up because you got, this is the passenger side hinge, and the driver's side hinge is on the other side. And by doing that, the round part is ahead of the windshield instead of behind the windshield like it should be.
Right.
And by mounting it this way, the windshield is supposed to fold in. But by mounting it, this is actually jammed. It doesn't move either direction.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but actually
Yeah.
that could actually be fixed really easily if you just take this hinge off and put it over there and move that one over, and then the windshield, the upper part of the
Oh.
windshield would be right.
Correct. Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah, and someone obviously tried to correct that over the years, but they got their left and right confused.
Missed a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
Huh.
I never saw one that was mounted backwards before.
Yeah.
Hey, well, you know.
But you know, and it's interesting, all these little intricacies and stuff, and you know, the Model T Ford. Now you've been dealing with them for quite a while, and they're not that difficult to figure out. You know, mechanically. You know,
No.
obviously there's no computers in it. There's nothing hidden. You just crawl underneath maybe, or just open the hood and kind of figure this out, and you know, and it's pretty interesting. And you know, we give tours here. Okay, both Kendra and I have given tours to groups, and you come across and you say, okay, is a Model T. Everybody's heard of Model T. Little
Yeah.
kids, we have
Yep.
little Cub Scouts come in. Oh yeah, they know what a Model T is, and or at least they've heard of it. But it's interesting. Now, obviously, some of the stuff we were talking here, you couldn't tell a little Cub Scout, but most people, there are interesting stories, and they could come out and, you know, and you could relay some of this stuff, maybe not the windshield things, but you know, like the just parts getting replaced all the time, because these cars were the universal cars, and I think everybody used them as much as they could.
Right.
Oh yeah, let's see if I can drive it off the cliff. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was daredevils like
Oh,
that.
sure.
And they said, well, maybe that's why there's different headlights on it
Yeah.
now.
Or they had to
Because
replace the engine that they blew
Yeah.
out, you know.
One time, Henry Ford was asked when was the beginning of car racing, and his answer was, car racing began when the second car was built.
Yes.
Yep.
So, yeah, and so they had to prove, and you know, I've done a bunch of research on racing Model Ts, and there's all sorts of things, and you know, so not only did you just drive it like crazy, but you wanted to make it go faster by putting other parts in. So you said the roof is not the correct roof either.
Well,
And this is interesting, and you tell us about it.
The thing with the roof is, well, first of all, the back curtain is wrong. That is a 17 to 27 because it has the 3 little windows in the back.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we were talking about it. Ron and I were talking about this earlier, and I'm thinking, you know, you get the 3 windows, that kind of makes it look a little different, and it's
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
more nicer, I think, than
Yeah.
one window, because you know, all cars have one
One
window
window.
now.
Let's
That's
have
right.
3.
This one
That's
has
right.
3.
And it's 1917 to 27, they went to that. But for a 15, it should have like a rectangular with a rounded top. Would be the correct for 1915. Now the thing that was neat was, and this is an old top, but when the top was put on, they made a mistake. And the mistake was when they cut the back curtain, they cut it too short. And if you stand at the side and look at this bow, you will see this top bow is actually leaning back a little bit. And the reason it's leaning back is because the curtain,
It's
the back curtain's
stretched.
too short. And then when that happened,
is.
what happened was here, the front of the top should actually be out here. Because the whole top moved back. And instead of it sitting on top like this, this should be ahead, and then it would come down a little bit, which would have this raise a little bit, which helps keep some of the water and stuff from blowing in on you. But that was someone, when they put the top on, and a lot of people, when they do tops, they cut them too short. And so they ended up having to compensate for it here a little bit.
Huh.
So that was kind of a neat thing, which obviously this top has been replaced at some time over the years.
And a lot of times the tops don't make it.
Yeah, and actually the material is pretty close on it, and all for being correct. It was just that they miscut a little bit.
Yeah, measure twice, cut once. They
Yeah.
didn't follow that one.
Yeah. So,
Well, and when you go to car shows and you look at Model Ts, one thing that you'll notice is there's an awful lot of tops that don't fit right.
Yeah.
well, you know, I'm gonna next time I'm at a show, because I
gonna
know
look.
Makunji has a whole string of Model Ts, and Hershey, of course, and stuff. And I'm gonna kind of welcome. So
You're going to go to
With the
McCungy, you're going
critical
to
idea.
walk up to the car that I have there, and you're going to check that top.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, now you have a couple Model Ts yourself,
Yes.
right? Okay, when yours.
And we have a 1914 Touring, a 1915 Touring, which is like a twin to this one,
Right.
a 1922 Touring, and a 1919 Coupe.
Okay. Yeah, so you got
Okay.
4 of them. And I think I first met you, you were driving that 1919 Coupe. I remember you were in a Coupe,
Oh, okay.
and it was here at Dorrier Day, like
okay,
the first year I was involved.
That would have been the 1919 Coupe.
And I remember you were driving circles around the field.
Okay.
I don't know why you
Probably
were
looking
driving
for a
circles.
parking spot.
Could have been, so, yeah. So with those 4 cars, you have a pretty decent background because you do the work yourself. You know, it's not taken to a restorer. And if people wanted information, let's say somebody wanted to buy a Model T, how do you go about buying a Model T? I
Well,
mean,
you can do the looking on the internet, and there's auctions for if people are interested in the auctions. That every now and then a Model T will come up. You can find them in the publications like Hemmings Motor News, and the magazines like the AACA magazine
Right.
has them listed in too.
okay.
And finding them isn't really that hard, because the interest as far as owning of a Model T is kind of dying off, because the people that were really into the Model Ts were the older people, and as they are not driving and dying off, the interest is fading a little bit as far as owning them. So you can find them pretty easy. Now once you get one, the problem is the people to go to for help, they're kind of dying off
Same
too.
problem.
Yes, so
But there are pretty good resources out there for something that's 100 years old.
oh yeah,
So we were talking
for,
about
for a
that.
100-year-old car, a Model T is probably has the most resources. There's a lot of books that were written on it, and there's still people around that are fairly knowledgeable.
Right. Yeah.
on
And
Model
there's a
T.
couple Model T clubs that are really good, really informative.
Yes.
You know, they have websites, good websites, and good forums.
Yes.
I belong to one of them, by the way, so
and
that's
even
how I noticed stuff.
and even a lot of the local clubs and the regions affiliated with the Antique Automobile Club of America, generally in most of the regions, there's people that have Model Ts too,
Right.
that can help you.
Right. And another thing is, I've heard this about a Model A, and I'm going to venture and say Model T also. You could go to Hershey and buy a complete Model T, brand new, different parts, because there's a lot of remanufactured things.
There's a lot of parts manufactured for Model Ts,
Yeah.
and out at Hershey, in fact, that's at their flea market. You can at the car corral you can find the cars, and there's a lot of Model T parts at Hershey, and there's vendors that sell reproduction parts.
Absolutely.
So parts aren't really much of a problem on Model Ts.
How many Model Ts do you think are still in existence today?
I have no clue how many are in existence. I know it's 15 million is what
Right.
was built, and
Yeah.
that was only surpassed by the Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
As far
Wow.
but the Model T was made from 1927 or 1908 actually to 1927.
Right.
So
So there you go, people. Go out and buy Model T. Or actually, you could come and see ours too. And it is interesting. Now, if Kendra and I, you know, we took part in this we'll say interview. So we're experts now. So if you come and see Kendra and I at the museum, we'll explain everything.
yeah,
Isn't
sometime they will have to teach you how to drive it.
Yeah, the 3 pedals, and
That's
I
the
only
next
got
show.
I got 2 feet. So.
I'll sit next to you and I'll show you.
But I've done a lot of research on Model Ts. Not really the whole car, but I really like the aftermarket stuff and the racing stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's just huge amount, and even on this car, there's some things.
Because of there being so many of them built, the aftermarket companies back in the time period, they wanted to build things for Model Ts because they had their parts would fit an awful lot of cars.
Yeah.
So the aftermarket was very, very big.
Well, I know
Yeah.
this. For instance, they did not have shock absorbers. They were
No.
just springs.
No,
But this
this-
car
this-
has shock absorbers.
Yeah, this car has them.
on all 4 corners.
Aftermarket.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's aftermarket.
So.
Yeah, there was a really big aftermarket for Model T, and the thing that was neat too, because there were so many of them built and they were around for so long, the aftermarket for Model Ts lasted quite a few years,
Yeah.
Right.
and
Yep.
and even now, I mean, the reproduction parts that we get now, that would be aftermarket. You can still
Yeah.
buy a lot of things. For instance, the hubcap there, you can buy brand new hubcaps for it.
Well, and they were around so long too, partially, like we were saying before, you know, when something broke, it was easy to fix because he made them so, you know, your
Yes.
engine went, you could get
Yes.
an engine that was a few years off and it would fit.
Yes.
So your car could keep going for,
Yes, and
a
one
long
thing
time.
that he wanted to do, even in the 20s, in the later years, when he made a change, he wanted, if it was something important mechanically, he wanted it so the new part would fit on an older car. So that if you had an older car, you had to replace that part, you could get the updated part.
yeah.
So and the one thing was, Henry Ford's idea was that he felt he built the ultimate car, and Henry Ford actually felt that today we would be buying 2016 Model T Fords,
Yeah.
because he felt he had the ultimate car, and that's one reason he built them so long was instead of quitting, other people were telling him to quit, but he felt he had the best car out, so he wanted to keep with it.
Yeah, I understand he kind of fought the idea of going to a Model A, which, you know,
Yes.
is after this.
He was very opposed to it, and actually what was funny was in the 20s, when his engineering people and people within the company were telling him that he better change, that his Model T was becoming behind the times. Other people were coming out with, they were catching up to him, and he got to the point where he would fire the people when they would come telling him this.
Wow.
And what had happened was Chevrolet at that time period had a lot of quality issues in the early 20s. The Chevrolets were not too good. And they realized real quick that the answer to their problem was hire the people that Henry Ford would fire. And they did this. And in the mid-20s, the quality of the Chevrolet was really improving, and they were doing much more modern cars. They had colors and stuff where Ford was still black, and the Chevrolet sales started really going up. And in 1927, Ford saw that Chevrolet was going to beat him in sales, which is why he stopped the Model T very abruptly.
Yeah.
And he went for over a year without a car. And then in late 28, he came out with the Model A.
Right.
So actually, what had happened was the people within Ford Motor Company that made Ford, the Model T, great in the teens, made the Chevrolet great in the 20s. It was the same people.
Ah. of an interesting business model that you're okay with people just updating your car. Like he wouldn't want you to buy a new one.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know. You would think, oh, my car's getting old, I'll buy a new one. Not
Well, that
so
wasn't
easy to replace this part, I'll just...
that wasn't the thinking back then,
yeah.
and people hung on to stuff, and you know, his main focus was to get people in cars, and he wasn't thinking so much of replacement. He was thinking of people buying their first car.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, thanks,
Yeah.
Ron,
Okay.
for
This is
doing this.
great.
This is interesting. I always liked this car, and I remember when I was polishing the brass years ago, that's where I kind of started investigating it, and the more I did that, the more I liked it, you know, so. and
Model Ts are very
interest-
neat.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's why you got 4 of them, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so.
Now we've got more fodder for our tour groups.
Oh,
now.
absolutely. That's what I'm thinking too. You know, oh, take, you know, look at this and this and this. So, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, we're actually out of time. We had more planned for tonight, but
We did, yeah. Some pretty good stuff too.
que
But,
sera, sera.
but there's always a lot of good stuff to talk about.
There
you
is,
know.
there is.
There's a lot. We could do a show once a week. Take a lot of work,
It
but there's okay. Maybe we won't.
I'm tired
Okay.
already.
Yeah.
So we'll
okay.
push our interesting stuff to next month.
Yes, yes.
So you gotta tune back in February,
Mm-hmm.
and until then, we had a great time talking
Yeah.
about the Chadwick old
Yes.
ways of getting around. We learned a little bit
Mhm.
more about our Model T. So we'll see everyone next month.
Okay. Yep. Bye.